You're driving home from work, it's late, traffic is slow, your phone is at 12%, and your mind is doing that quiet calculation it always does at the end of the month. Rent cleared, car payment went through, credit card bill is due in 3 days. You open your banking app at a red light. The number is fine. Not zero, not negative, but not enough to feel comfortable either. Just enough to get to the next paycheck. Just enough to keep everything running, and then something small happens. Maybe your car makes a weird noise. Maybe your dentist texts you about an appointment. Maybe your manager says, "Can we talk tomorrow?" And suddenly that number doesn't feel fine anymore. It feels fragile. It feels like one bad week could undo everything. This is how most people live. Not broke, not wealthy, just stretched. And here's the part nobody tells you. This is exactly where the system wants you, because the most profitable customer in the banking system is not rich and not broke. It's someone living paycheck to paycheck. Let's start with something simple. Why doesn't the system want you broke? Because broke people can't pay. They can't pay interest. They can't pay fees. They can't qualify for loans. They drop out of the system entirely. From a business perspective, they're useless. But someone living paycheck to paycheck, that's different. They have income. They have transactions. They have activity. But they also have pressure. And pressure is where money gets extracted. Your bank doesn't want you failing. It wants you functioning. Just barely. Think of your financial life like a bridge. On one side is survival. On the other side is freedom. And in the middle is a toll road. Every time you're slightly short on money, you pay a toll. Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's invisible. But it's always there. And if you live paycheck to paycheck, you're crossing that toll road constantly. Let's break down how this actually works, layer by layer, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. First layer, overdraft fees. Let's say your account balance is $120. Your rent is $1,200. Your groceries are $80. Your phone bill is $60. All of them hit around the same time. Your account goes negative. Now you get charged $35, maybe twice, maybe 3 times. That's $70. $105 gone. Not because you did something reckless, because your timing was off. And here's what makes this interesting. A small percentage of customers generate most of these fees, the same people, over and over again. People who are not irresponsible, just stretched, just close enough to zero that small mistakes become expensive. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you don't need to be careless. You just need one bad week. Second layer, credit cards. Let's say your car breaks down, $1,200 repair. You don't have the cash, so you use a credit card, no big deal. You'll pay it later, but next month comes, and the money you needed to pay it off is already allocated. Rent, food, bills, so you carry the balance. Now you're paying 20, 25, sometimes 30% interest. That $1,200 becomes $1,400, $1,600, quietly. And here's the key detail. The people paying that interest are not reckless spenders. They're people without a buffer, because when you don't have savings, the credit card becomes your emergency fund, and emergencies don't wait. Third layer, the desperation premium. This one is subtle. You go to buy a car, you need it quickly. Your old one is gone. You don't have weeks to compare offers. You take what's available. Maybe the interest rate is just a little higher. 1%, 2% more. It doesn't feel like much. But over time, that's hundreds, sometimes thousands of extra. Not because you had bad credit, because you didn't have time. And time, in finance, is leverage. When you live paycheck to paycheck, everything is urgent, and urgency is expensive. Fourth layer, small recurring fees, maintenance fees, minimum balance fees, late payment penalties. Individually, they look harmless. $10 here, $15 there, but they show up at the exact wrong time, when your balance is already low, when your margin is already thin, and over a year. That's real money, money that could have been saved, but instead disappears quietly. Now here's where it gets more interesting, because everything we just talked about, you can see it. It shows up on your statement. But there's another layer, and this one never shows up anywhere. The psychological layer, when you're financially stressed, your brain changes, you don't think long term, you think about getting through the week, you don't compare 5 options, you pick the one that works right now, you don't negotiate, you accept because you don't have the energy or the time or the margin for mistakes. So your decisions get faster, and faster decisions are usually more expensive decisions. You buy things to feel relief, you accept bad deals to avoid stress, you say yes when you should wait, not because you're irrational, because you're overloaded. And that state is incredibly profitable because the system doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to be slightly pressured all the time. And the most dangerous part is that it feels normal. It feels like life. Like this is just how money works. Like everyone is dealing with the same thing. But they're not. Some people crossed a line and everything changed. And that line is smaller than most people think. Around $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, not millions. Not some distant fantasy number, just enough to create space. Because once you cross that line, the entire system starts behaving differently around you. Let's go back to the same situations. Same person, same income, same life. But now, they have $20,000 sitting in savings. Car breaks down, $1,200. They don't think twice. They transfer the money. Problem solved. No interest, no stress carried into next month, no chain reaction. Credit card bill comes. They pay it in full. Every time. Not because they're more disciplined, because they're not relying on it anymore. Bank balance dips slightly. It doesn't matter. There's a buffer behind it. No overdraft, no penalties, no panic. They go to buy a car. They don't rush. They compare. They wait. They walk away from bad offers. And suddenly, the price gets better. Not because the system became generous, because they stopped being desperate. This is the shift, and it's subtle, but it's everything. Let me give you a simple example. 2 people, same job, same salary, same expenses. One has $2,000 saved, the other has $25,000. Their boss calls them into a meeting. Workload increases, pressure increases, no raise. The first person says yes. They have to. Missing even one paycheck would create chaos. The second person pauses, goes home, updates their resume, applies to a few roles, waits. Within a few months, they leave for something better, better pay, better environment. Same starting point, completely different outcome, because one person had an exit and the other didn't. This is what savings really buys you. Not luxury, not status, options. And once you have options, every financial interaction changes. There's a concept for this. It's called an outside option. It means you don't have to say yes. And the moment you don't have to say yes, you stop being easy to profit from. Because think about it. When do you make your worst financial decisions? When you're rushed, when you're stressed, when you feel like you have no choice. That's when you take the bad loan. That's when you accept the high price. That's when you ignore the details. And that's exactly when the system makes the most money. But when you have a buffer, you slow down, you read the terms, you compare options, you wait a day, sometimes you walk away completely. And every time you do that, someone on the other side makes less money. This is why the system quietly prefers people who stay in the middle, not failing, not free, just functioning, earning, spending, borrowing, repeating, because that cycle is predictable and predictability is profitable. There's even internal logic behind it. The highest value customers are not the richest ones. They're the ones with steady income, low savings, and constant activity. They use credit, they pay interest, they occasionally miss timing, they generate fees, not once, but repeatedly, month after month. That's the model. Now let's make this real with numbers. Imagine someone paying $1,000 a year in credit card interest, $150 in account fees, $500 in slightly worse loan terms, a few hundred more in rushed decisions. That's around $2,000 a year. Not building wealth, not reducing debt, just friction, the cost of being close to zero. Over 5 years, that's $10,000 gone. Not from one big mistake, but from dozens of small ones, all coming from the same place. No buffer. And here's the shift most people miss. You don't escape this by earning more, because a higher income, without a buffer, just creates a more expensive version of the same problem. More bills, more commitments, more pressure. The escape is creating space. Even a small buffer changes behavior. $1,000 reduces panic. $5,000 reduces bad decisions. $10,000 reduces dependency. And somewhere around $20,000. You stop reacting and start choosing. You stop solving problems with debt and start solving them with time. And time is what gives you leverage, because the system only has power over you. When you need something immediately, money, approval, a paycheck, remove the urgency, and the leverage disappears. This is why this number matters. Not because it makes you rich, because it makes you calm. And calm people make better decisions. They don't rush, they don't panic, they don't overpay, they think, they compare, they walk away. And every time they do that, the system loses a little bit of its grip. So this isn't about becoming wealthy overnight. It's about becoming hard to profit from. Because right now, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're not failing. You're just in the most profitable position possible for someone else. And the moment you build even a small buffer, you start moving out of that position. Slowly, quietly, permanently. You stop being the person crossing the toll road every month, and you become the person who built another path. And once you have another path, you don't think about the toll anymore. You just stop paying it.